Okay, quick video time. We've got to talk about Seraphine. Seraphine, if you don't know, was a new champion that was just introduced to League of Legends. Now, I don't really play League of Legends, but I do follow League and Dota and that kind of thing, basically like everyone else does. You can't escape it. But man, Seraphine is a story. Seraphine was released at the tail end of what I guess you could call an ARG, kind of? Like an ARG crossed with VTubers and marketing Twitter and parasocial relationships. Before Seraphine was ever released to the public, there was this Twitter account that kind of just appeared and had a peculiar sort of look. Seraphine's tweets read like a marketer or writer's idea of what a Zoomer or millennial might behave like on Twitter or any other social network. Everything she posts is a simulacra of what a millennial or Zoomer might post. It's like close enough, but reflected through so many mirrors that you can tell it's wrong. It's like the uncanny valley of tweets. Like brand Twitter with like cool accounts is so passe at this point that I don't even want to talk about it that much, but it's honest about what it is. You kind of see it and know, hey, this is some marketer writing this account. Seraphine, on the other hand, wanted to avoid that. It was trying to appear as if it was a real person, and that's weird.
Seraphine's tweets portray her as struggling with imposter syndrome. They show her as unsure of her place in the world, of struggling with isolation. Depending on how you read some of her tweets, even unsure of her own body. The goal with these tweets is simple. By portraying a young woman who is struggling along much in the same way that many millennials and Zoomers are, you are introducing a character that is relatable, one that could be your friend. This is a parasocial relationship. If you are unfamiliar with that term, then all you need to know is that a parasocial relationship is a one-sided relationship where a person watching someone else ends up feeling like they are friends with that person. The term was originally used to refer to people befriending their favorite actors and characters on TV, but nowadays it has had a resurgence with the advent of YouTubers and streamers. Parasocial relationships are one-sided, obviously. The performer is isolated from the viewer, and neither really can understand each other. Here, with Seraphine, that's taken to a new extreme. Seraphine is performing like a person, but she isn't one. Yet for the chronically isolated and lonely, she can inspire a true sense of connection, of intimacy even. That is despite never genuinely returning this feeling, as she can't. As I'll repeat 1 billion times, she isn't real. Fake transactional interactions can tighten these synthetic bonds, like this, for example. Seraphine wants you to reach out to her. She needs your help. She's cherishing your responses. Yes, this happens with YouTubers and streamers too, but in those cases, at least the other person on the other side of the screen might be as lonely as you are. In this case, that's impossible, as there is just you and no one else.
Marketing Twitter, like I said, is already bad enough as it is. Brand feeds want to create a parasocial relationship with you. They want you to feel like you're their friend or they're your friend. The old meat is your pal. They do this so you buy meat. And look, this topic has been done to death. I don't really want to get into it precisely in this particular video. Whatever. One thing I will say with a lot of these accounts is there's always the moment where the curtain is peeled back and the social media manager comes forward and is like, no, I am a real person and I understand that this is a brand account, but like, I'm real. But like, no, man, I'm a professional marketer. That's what I do for a living. And I've worked for national brands on social media teams. And yeah, sometimes it's one person behind the account, but behind that one person is a team making up the general direction and the content calendar and where we're going and what our strategy is. It's not just like one person that just decided to wake up one day and be like, I'm gonna tweet about meat. And those teams, the money behind those teams, their goal is to make you buy something. They're not just there for free entertainment. They're not there so you can have a laugh at the tweet. They're there so you buy something. But yeah, take marketing Twitter and then put it on a made-up character asking for sympathy and sharing her feelings, who isn't real in the middle of a pandemic and a recession. and political turmoil and social turmoil. And like, holy shit, man, what the fuck? But yeah, Seraphine went on Twitter, tweeted up a storm on Instagram, posting a bunch of stuff, and just created this whole personality where she was forming relationships with fans and getting them to make fan art of her. Right up into the point where she was announced as being a part of KDA, the in-universe League of Legends K-pop group. Of course, when she was announced, this basically meant that she was a character in League, and then she was formally introduced as a new champion in League of Legends. But like, she kind of was and kind of wasn't, because her character as it was introduced in this timeline was actually just part of one skin for the character of Seraphine, but the regular character wasn't. And look, I can't follow it. At the end of the day, the important part is that if you wanted the character that was being introduced on Twitter and was part of the in-world K-pop group in League of Legends, then you had to spend $25 to get a skin.
All characters are creations, but the performance at the heart of Seraphine is transparent. Every tweet, every selfie is being crafted with the explicit intent of picking up your lonely, isolated body and shaking it for any ounce of gold that might fall free. It is a corporation masquerading as a young woman who needs connection with you, when the only thing Riot needs is your auto-saved payment info and your 3-digit CVV2 code.
That's gross. If the end goal of all of that was a $25 skin, that's gross. And look, I'm not saying if you've connected with her as a character, if you have made fan art or any kind of fan creation because you genuinely fell in love with this character, that's cool. I'm not coming for you here. I have no beef with you. Fall in love with characters, whatever. I have issue with the campaign behind the character. What makes this whole thing like even weirder and grosser is that when she was first introduced, now once again, I don't play League, but I have friends that do, and reading about this, I understand this is the case. When she was first introduced, many people noticed that her abilities seemed like they were copy and pasted from other champions. That is to say, all of this effort wasn't going into introducing a brand new champion that had a completely new moveset and was fundamentally a new, interesting character that you could play League of Legends with. Instead, it kinda seemed like this whole purpose, this whole character was built up to add a fresh coat of paint and a $25 skin on an older hero. This makes everything else that I've just been talking about a little bit worse. Of course, all of this eventually made it to the major gaming sites, and when the major gaming sites looked into it, they wanted to interview the team that was behind the creation of Seraphine. Eventually, one of the writers behind the project was quoted, and because she was quoted, she decided to come forward with a preemptive statement on Twitter. In her tweets, she claims that there was no board of execs scheming to create a relatable girl or capitalize on mental illness, and that she spent all of 2020 pouring her heart into this project. She genuinely cared about all the people who interacted, and I wanted to use this platform to uplift them. I believe that, really. There probably wasn't a big boardroom meeting where they put all their data into their big new champion machine and it spat out slightly depressed, pink-haired e-girl character. That really was someone's character. I believe someone on their art team or the creative team probably sketched her out and came up with her. But here's the thing. While there was no boardroom, I bet there were meetings about the need to develop a certain kind of character or to connect with a certain kind of audience. People have made note of the fact that early on in League of Legends' timeline, there seemed to be a lean on more metal-ish themes that ended up switching to more K-pop themes. Now, I don't believe that's because all the developers at Riot suddenly just a switch flipped and, oh, this is what we're into now. There's a reason behind that, and I would have to say it probably has to do with the demographics of the people that play their game. Now, this talk didn't have to come on high from an executive. No man in a suit had to come in and like knock on their door and say, hey, you're doing a character about this. That probably didn't happen. I would be really surprised if it did. But some designer did probably come down and look at their team and say, hey, how can we meet our fans where they're at? How can we tell a story that will really connect with them? These aren't malicious questions. It's just a bunch of creatives trying to tell an engaging story, right? Here's the thing though. Those conversations might seem completely benign, but they're the exact same conversations that happen in meeting rooms at advertising and marketing agencies. Ask me how I know. At high concept ad agencies, the question is never bluntly, how do we engage the specific demographic from like 18 to 35 or whatever? It doesn't happen that way. Instead, it goes like this. What stories can we tell to enrich the lives of our customers? How can we really inspire someone? And the people at marketing agencies aren't robots. They're not these isolated members of society. They're like you. Get the image out of your head that marketing firms are all piloted by 50-year-old disconnected dudes that don't know anything about pop culture. The reality is that most ad and marketing agencies are staffed by young 20-somethings that are fresh out of college. They're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they're looking to change the world. This group isn't completely cynical yet. They're not burnt out. They are excited that they've gotten a job to unleash their creative talent. These are writers and artists who are getting paid good money to be creative, and that's thrilling and exhilarating. At the same time, most ad agencies have these big goals and these big ideas they push on you about how they're gonna change the world and we're gonna do good things together. For a short period of time, a lot of people on these teams really do buy in heavily. They feel like they've made it. Once again, they're getting paid to essentially participate in their passion. But even though all of that is true, they're not getting really paid to participate in their passion. They're getting paid to extract any ounce of creativity out of them to make it get churned through a machine that's going to then generate profit for their clients. That's the whole point. When a client hires an ad agency, they're not doing so because they want to throw money away, as much as that sometimes feels like that's the case. No, what they're doing is they're hoping that you can generate buzz or desire for their products or services. Cool places like game studios or the entertainment industry in general, the people that work there tend to feel like they're immune from this, that they're disconnected from it. They're not necessarily in the marketing room with the marketers crunching SEO numbers or something, but they're still part of the marketing team. All of those assets, all of the story, it's there to sell an idea, to sell an emotional connection with their product. I'm sure that this writer really thought and felt like she was telling a story about kindness or whatever. But she really wasn't just telling a story. She was writing a narrative to be used by her employer, Riot, to sell a $25 skin in a video game. She, through Riot, is hoping that people fall in love with her character, that they make fan art of her character, that they help this character go viral, so that, once again, they can sell pretty pixels in a video game. This character was destined to be part of KDA. She was destined to have a really cool looking $25 skin. It's hard not to see the $25 skin and then work back from there. The end goal here was always capital. It was always to make money for Riot.
Many other advertisers like Subaru use a narrative and emotional connection to sell product, but at least they're honest about what they are.
As a writer or any creative person working at a large entity like Riot, you have a certain responsibility. Your intent really might truly have been wholesome. You might really want to just tell creative, interesting, and engaging stories. You have to be able to stand back for a second and think, how is this character going to impact the world? How are people going to connect with this character, and what does that mean? You also have to think, why do I want people to connect with this character? Is it because you want to have people feel emotional fulfillment or some sort of warmth from being able to connect and relate to a character that you've created? Or is the end goal to use that emotional link rather than just making people feel good to make them buy something? And if that's the case, then you have to realize you are creating a character to emotionally manipulate people into buying things, into buying a $25 skin. And obviously, this is the kind of thing that marketers do all the time, but there's a certain wall there. When you see a commercial, like I mentioned, that Subaru commercial, you know that you're seeing a commercial. When you're seeing something like this on Twitter or on Instagram, that's not necessarily the case, especially when you consider who this is being marketed towards and the just general state of the world that you're currently operating in. A campaign like this, I believe, could have been done well. It didn't have to be a train wreck like this. Maybe not creating a character that is whining about how she can't go to the beach when there's like people stuck inside for the last 8 months. I haven't left my house in Like, really, I'm not saying that if you're a writer and you're a writer for a video game company that you can never create a character that people can't engage with. You should strive, no matter what you're doing, to create characters that people can engage with and that they can feel a connection with and towards. But like, in this particular way, at this particular time, maybe not. And it gets weirder. On November 12th, a woman named Stephanie came forward on Twitter with a story about how she had previously, for a short amount of time, been dating an employee at Riot, and that she thinks Seraphine is based on her. There's a lot here, and I can't possibly cover everything in this video, but I am going to try and sum it up the best I can. I'll post her full Medium post below so you can read it yourself, and I would strongly suggest that you do so. To sum things up though, Stephanie brings up that her and Seraphine both look similar, and I mean, yeah, that the man she dated at Riot was supposedly involved in KDA's inception, that he wanted her to voice act for some secret project, that the character Seraphine just happened to first work with KDA on September 19th, which is her birthday. Apparently at some point, Stephanie happened to write a paper on Piltover and Zon, I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly, that she shared with the employee. And that's where this character ended up being from. She mentions that this particular paper was even printed out by the employee and was like hung up on his desk. Now, it's important to note that Riot has already come out and in a very legal way said basically nope to this whole thing. But Stephanie is holding her ground here and has even said that she's not claiming that the entirety of the character was inspired by her, but that a large part of it seems like it was. And like, I mean, I can't really argue with her. Look at them. There's a lot of visual similarity here. Now, I don't particularly know what to do with this other than it adds like a whole nother level of just ugh to the whole thing. One of the whole kind of weird things about this thing is that it really ties into fandom and how fandom has become something that can be marketed towards. Somewhere along the line, these big companies realized you can use fandom to make more money. Like, while I love Overwatch and I love everything that the game does and blah 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 whatever, there's no doubt that narratively they do just enough to make you like these characters, but then their creative team really doesn't do more than that. They sprinkle little bits out there. They don't really present a whole big story, just tiny little bits. And well, you could kind of say, oh, maybe that's because Blizzard's lazy. I don't think that's the case. Blizzard is a company that for many of their properties, they produce tons and tons of stories and materials for them. But Overwatch, just a little sprinkle. And considering how Overwatch has masterfully used fandom and how the Overwatch fandom is massive as it is, it's hard not to see that as a tool. That developers, rather than building that out themselves, they realize by leaving those spaces blank, the fans are going to fill in the rest. And when they do fill in the rest, well, that's going to create this giant machine. Essentially, that void is a void of possibility that they can then use to market like crazy. And I'm not saying don't participate in fandom, What I am saying is that when you're creating art, when you're creating music, or any kind of videos or creative properties, you are appearing on a line in a report somewhere in a boardroom where someone's talking about player engagement. And that's something just to be aware of. There's no doubt in my mind that that whole mindset, that realization was part of Seraphine's creation. Even if the people behind her talk about kindness and joy in the world, I don't believe that there was never a conversation at Riot about what fandom can do for them and their bottom line. And this is gonna get more complicated. With the emergence of VTubers, it's only a matter of time before you see brands creating VTube personalities of their own and using them as tools to market things. The marketing machine is coming. It is going to vacuum this space up, just like it did with brand Twitter. All of this whole mechanism is going to extract joy out of these things that we love. Marketers don't love things the way that you do. They love achieving their goals. Even game companies, they might be really invested. The people at these companies probably really do love these properties and these characters that they're working with. But somewhere behind them, they have to be aware of, and you have to be aware of, there is someone there eager to see the dollar signs light up from the money that this is going to make them. Seraphine is really just the beginning. Companies 100% will build out any strategy they can to extract money from your pockets, even and especially if that means emotionally manipulating you. If you're a writer or an artist at one of these companies, or a fan of that writing and art, just be aware of that. Anyway, I promise a VRChat video is coming soon. Really, I'm working on it right now. I just had this whole idea that I needed to squeeze out, and I needed to rant a little. So thank you for letting me do that. As always, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.